Hi everyone. I'd like to talk about cloud computing today, and what we'll be doing in in this video is a short introduction to cloud computing. So, what is cloud computing? Well, cloud computing is the on-demand delivery of IT resources and applications over the internet. I suppose you'd want to know what does on-demand mean, and on-demand actually refers to having the resources or the applications as soon as required, whenever we need it. And this is not restricted by time or place. So, irrespective of what time where we need the applications or the resources, and also irrespective of our location in the world, then this is what these resources and applications should be available. And this is essentially what on-demand means. Just a good point to note here is the fact that the delivery of the resources and applications is over the internet. So this does highlight the importance of the reliability and the speed of the internet when it comes to cloud computing. Because everything is provided over the internet, we need absolutely a very strong and very reliable internet connection. Well, to understand a bit more about why there's such a craze on cloud computing at the moment, it's such a great popularity for the new technology, the new model of computing. It would be good to compare it with where we are traditionally, or what was the common enterprise setup before this model came about. And traditionally, when you had an enterprise or a company, you'd build your own data center. You'd build your own data center on premise, in your own building, or it would be under complete control in your premises, and this would be to support the customers, and they would provide the services themselves to the customers on machines that have been totally owned by them. So the enterprise would have bought these machines, and they would be maintaining them in their data center on their own premises. Now, while it's also for their customers, but we also need to factor in the companies that are providing, like they have to develop these applications or they have their own development teams. Then they would need to have servers that would be providing the development capability as well. And these were also hosted in their data centers. So the development teams, the testing teams would have their development servers, the testing servers, and finally the production servers, which were to support the customers. So all this required data centers, all this required space, and they were having to plan for the bandwidth of these customers when they're using them in the peak times, for example during holiday season or Christmas period. The part of the production planning would have to be around these worst case scenarios, what sort of load that they would be expected to support. And all this had to be planned up front. So this would mean that the enterprises themselves would have to buy machines, servers for the worst case scenario. And what it does mean then that in the off-peak scenario, this spare capacity would be idle and wouldn't be used, but the enterprise itself would still be paying for these fixed costs, for example, for the building itself, air conditioning, power, and also the staff who are maintaining these servers. Another thing to think about with the traditional setup is disaster recovery. So companies and enterprises, typically global ones, would have to have spare capacity for spare servers that would have be housed in buildings, maybe in a different part of the country, or maybe in different countries in the world. And then again, that would be at a cost for the particular enterprise to maintain and house and maintain those servers over long periods of time, and for as long as they require this particular service. Now, setting up these data centers takes time, and this will be all part of the project management of the setup of new services or upgrading existing services. Would have to take into account the weeks, if not months, required to provision these new data centers. Now we have cloud computing, and with cloud computing we find out that there is no need for enterprises to maintain expensive data centers. Well, we say there's no need, but in many cases there's no need. There may be particular cases around security of data or legal requirements where companies still need to have data centers, but in many cases with cloud computing, there is no need now for the company or the enterprise to own their own data centers. They also don't need to worry about the worst case scenario, because the cloud computing model allows the enterprise to scale up or down as and when required and quickly. So this means that if the demand for a particular service is growing, the enterprise can quickly launch new services that will allow them to take on the extra load without impacting the quality of service to the customer. And in all this, it's a pay-as-you-go model. So there's no fixed cost, whether it's a off-peak or high-peak system demand. They'll only be paying for what you need. So if the demand is low, you pay for a certain number of services that you require. If the demand goes higher, you'll pay for some more services, and when you don't need them, as when the demand drops again, you can go back to the reduced set of services that you were using. So it's very much a pay-as-you-go model, and it's pay for what you need when you need it. When it comes to disaster recovery, again, the model provides for locations across the world, and the startup, the company, or even the enterprise, they don't need to worry about having sites all over the world. They can tap into the cloud model, the cloud provider, and have servers running in the many places that are available across the world. So they can have their main service, the main instance running, say, in the US, and they can have a disaster recovery in Latin America. And again, the services provided as part of that are within minutes. They can switch over if there's any problems from one instance to the other. And the time required in this context is we're talking about minutes rather than weeks and months, and this is a very strong advantage of using these cloud computing services, that the time to scale up or down is very short, and it can be done very quickly. So with just listening to these advantages and these of the model itself, it's very easy to see how attractive this model is for many businesses and companies and even enterprises. So when we talk about cloud computing, one of the terms we use to describe cloud computing is it's scalable, and by this we mean that we can use the services at our own pace. So it grows and it shrinks as and when we need it. Um, Even if we didn't plan for it, we can still adapt quickly to unforeseen changes. If it's a seasonal demand, if there's something happened that was never expected, even in these situations, we're talking a question of minutes to plan to roll out the new services. And even there, we can launch new services, and we can even launch new products very quickly. So if there's a change in strategy, it gives the cloud computing model gives great flexibility to the business to change strategy at a very short notice, and this helps the business adapt to quick changes in circumstances rather than being caught out and losing a lot of money. Another term we use to describe cloud computing is agile, and by this we mean the speed to which it can respond to change. So with cloud computing, as we mentioned earlier, we can get to global reach very quickly. The cloud providers have locations all over the world, and they were able to maintain a quality of service to customers globally, and that is a great advantage of cloud computing. So we can be literally very close to the customer, and the customers get a better experience as the latency is very low, and the response of their websites or the services is as they would expect. And to show an example of the agility of the cloud computing, we can see quickly here. Oh, just bear with me. I think this, yeah, there we go. So we can see, for example, the Amazon AWS cloud is available in many regions across the world. The blue is the current regions, and the red are new regions that are coming up. So you can see here that we have regions in America, in Europe, South America, South Africa, Middle East, in Asia, and even Australia. And for the Azure cloud is it looks like they have more regions, but the principle is the same. So we have many regions all over the world that provide services, and all these regions we'll be able to deploy our servers in these regions in minutes. And this is a great advantage of the cloud computing model. So carrying on with the agility side of things for the cloud computing, we can see here that while the agility also provides great benefits for the business, it also gives people developing new services a lot of flexibility. So if you imagine that you can start up and shut down instances within minutes and at very short notice, this means that we can easily experiment with new ideas, new technologies, new programs, and it makes it very easy to test with different types of servers. So while we use the term servers from a historic point of view, um, some cloud providers prefer the use of the word instances, and you can specify different hardware specifications for the instances. So it means that we can experiment our application, our service on different hardware with very little notice and within a short space of time. There's no need to worry about the lead times of provisioning hardware. It's all done virtually in the cloud itself. So this is what I was mentioning just now, that you can have literally different virtual hardware to test and experiment on. And this agility encourages innovation as well, as we can try new ideas on these instances very quickly with no impact on any existing infrastructure. And this is because the servers, the instances themselves are totally isolated from the rest of the infrastructure, which means that the development teams can feel completely comfortable that they are isolated from the rest of the production servers or instances. And again, the cost is comparatively speaking very low. And once again, it's on a pay-as-you-go model. And once it's been the idea has been proven or the results are out, then we just remove that instance from the provider, from the cloud provider, and we're no longer paying for it. So again, the innovation is encouraged in this model. There's no lead time for servers. The cost implications are minimal. It's very quick and easy to start a new instance and then to shut it down and remove it. The impact on existing infrastructure is non-existent because they're completely isolated, and all this is very configurable and again is at very low cost. So this is a bit more information there about the cloud computing model. So we've talked a lot about the benefits of the cloud computing. It's probably a good idea to understand a bit more about the technology involved for the cloud computing itself. I mean, how is all this possible? Surely it can't be magic. How is it possible to have servers running in the cloud? We're talking about database servers, we're talking about application servers, we're talking about new operating systems, we're talking about, as I said, app servers, web servers. All these types of servers are just running in the cloud. How is it possible to have a server start up in minutes? How is it possible for having many new servers start up in minutes? And how is it possible to have them all over the world in minutes? Well, the answer to this question, I think, we'll keep for the next video. This video is getting a bit long now, but yeah, please tune in again for explanation about what is all the magic behind the cloud computing. Thank you, everyone. Bye.